Hello and welcome to Election Headquarters Live on the Joy News channel on Multi TV. You can also access us live online on stream.myjoyonline.com. You can post your comments on our Facebook page, facebook.com/joynewsontv, or follow us on Twitter at Joy News on TV. Send us a text message if you can to short code 1760 or on WhatsApp 0544-334-722. Today is the 19th day of December in the year 2012. Time check, 37 minutes after 6. This is Election Headquarters and is sponsored by Star Ghana. My name is Francis Aban. I'm your host and I'm glad to have you here with me today. This morning, the New Patriotic Party, who is still gathering evidence to go to court on Tuesday, organized a peace march dubbed March for Justice. Are they influencing the judicial bench negatively? How many Ghanaians are divided, partly in support of the court action and partly against the demonstrations? We'll take a legal perspective from Mr. Kissie Jabing. Now, most political parties also made good use of social media during this year's election. Did it really work for these parties? We'll talk with the two major parties and also experts and expert observers in this field. It's about social media this morning. We just need to take a short break, give you a sneak peek of what's in the newspapers this morning. When we come back, we start with the discussion. Welcome back. You're watching Election Headquarters, brought to you by Star Ghana. This morning, it's a two-pronged discussion. First, we'll be looking at the NPP demonstration yesterday, what it means for the party's legal bid that is taking. We have to find out when they will head to the court. But again, we are aware that they will be contesting the election results in the Supreme Court. We'll be finding out, this demonstration, was it necessary at all? Did it yield the results that they were expecting? Did they meet their own expectation? And also, we'll be taking a critical look at the use of social media. We all go there, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, you name it. We all go there to share our thoughts, our feelings, a lot of things. But it seems in this year's election, the political parties really had a go on the social media. They thought it was a good place to get attention, drive attention to their parties, and maybe, just maybe, grab the minds of people to vote for them in the election. Did it work? We'll be finding out from the parties themselves. But here in the studio with me to have a very good discussion about it. To my extreme left, the name
Jerry Sam.
Jerry Sam, yes. Jerry Sam is
the African Elections Project.
Okay.
African Elections Project.
African Elections Project,
Yeah.
Okay. Many thanks for joining us this morning. Also, I have with me Kwabena Suman.
Kwabena Opong-Boateng.
Kwabena Opong-Boateng. Okay. Many thanks for joining us this morning. And also to you, Kaiser Edu. Many thanks for joining us this morning on the show. Now, we saw the political parties use the social media quite a lot in this year's election. But before we even touch on that, there was a demonstration yesterday by the NPP. Essentially, they were actually voicing out their concern about how the elections pan out. They believe that they have a strong case to push. But the supporters have a rather different idea as to what this demonstration meant to them. But before we just have a quick discussion on that, let's get an insight of what happened yesterday in Kumasi. Quite a lot of MPP supporters there in Kumasi in that peaceful demonstration, or should I say protest rally they had yesterday in Kumasi. Now, did it even trend on Facebook, on Twitter? Were you monitoring it on social media?
We were for Ghana Decides. It didn't necessarily trend, but we did mention a few stories about it, but not on the scale of what happened during the election week. Okay.
Did you see the same, Jerry?
Yes, we monitored as well. We're basically looking out to see if there'll be any incidents of violence. The only slight one was the attempt by the supporters to go to the EC office in Kumasi, which the police, quickly intervened to prevent them from doing so. But then, it didn't help out for them because they were just going to hand out their petition. The executives were going to the EC headquarters alone. But then the supporters decided to follow along.
Also excited.
You never know what will happen. Yeah. So the police prevented that. So that's only, but nothing really happened. It was totally peaceful.
Okay, Kaiser, did you monitor the developments on Twitter?
I did not, but I was curious. So did you see this on social media?
No, it didn't happen on social media. Okay. But we called directly or text messages coming in and we picked
I think what we saw during the election was that the discussions on social media was quite centered to Greater Accra and then some few, or Kumasi was there as well. But apart from those big cities, social media didn't really reach the rest of Ghana. So that's something that we have to
certainly we'll be taking a look at that, the reach, how many people even got the chance to get interactive on social media. Now let's come down to social media as it is. It's a very huge platform. You have a wide range of people going on social media virtually every day. Now in these elections, you realize that for the political parties, comparative to 2008, they really had a go on social media. Messages flooding in, talk of YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. In your view, did the parties take full use of the social media in these elections?
Yeah, the two leading parties, NPP and NDC, I think they utilize it to a maximum effect. I'll say, as much as they can, through advertisements, through mobilizing their supporters to come to rallies, even on the elections day. Some political parties actually, tweeted and Facebook that if you are having problems getting transportation to your voting areas, go to the party headquarters. Their buses there. You couldn't have done that in previous times. So this some few instances where they really utilize it. And now they also use it to raise money. For instance, I don't know how much or how far that went because in the early stages of his campaign it was very prominent. He used it a lot, but getting to the campaign hotting up, I think more of the policies free SHS overtook the stuff to raise money for the campaign. So these are some of the instances that
I remember the MPP, for instance, had a huge e-campaign launching it at the Kofi Annan ICT Center. Quite huge. They were positive that they will use the social media to reach the masses in this year's election.
Ghana Decides, we attended that e-campaign and it was interesting because they used Google Hangouts from their fan bases from around the country. With social media this year, it was big for most of the parties, and I think not just only the two main political parties, almost all the parties were on social media, and Papa Kwesi Ndom's PPP were quite a force on social media with their numbers and with their engagement. We would say they utilize it quite well, but I guess going forward, maybe next 4 years, there could be better conversation, better engagement with the audiences, and maybe that will to see how that transforms from online to vote. It will probably be more effective in a few more years to come.
We'll be looking at the positives, how are they able to use it and how they underutilize it as well, and looking forward into the next election, what they should be doing. But for you, Kaiser, I mean, yes, they went there, they put their messages there, but was it enough?
I think I just want to agree with my colleague, Kwabena. So I'm from Blogging Ghana, which is the mother organization of Ghana Decides. And I want to agree with him that they could have done more, because social media, the whole point of social media, how it differs from the traditional media, is that it's interactive. It's not just a one-way communication. It's not just a one-way we have buses here or listen to our message, but it's an invitation to discuss. And I think it could have been done maybe even more efficiently if the parties had trained their supporters to take the discussion online. For instance, if I'm having a discussion with somebody about the education issue, for instance, then if some NPP and NDC and other party supporters would join the debates and just come with their arguments, maybe they would swing some people over to the other side.
But did you
So
see
I think
a lot of that in this case?
not so much, a little bit, yes, but I don't think it was a concerted effort from the parties. If you compare to campaigns, very successful campaigns like Obama's campaign,
Certainly.
there they try to train people and involve not just the people who are working for the campaign, but just anybody who is passionate about the party's message can take those messages on board.
But is it to say that in this election, I just wanted to have a critical look at the messages on campaign, then we'll broaden up the scope. In this election, was it to mean if there was little interaction or if there was any, was it enough per the messages they were giving out? Was it attractive enough on social media to make people even have a look at it and even engage in interactions on social media?
Yes, I think so. The parties that were using it, PPP, NDC, MPP, I think they had well-structured messages that they sent out, especially on Facebook. They summarize a whole big policy, into few words that people can identify with, that people can comment on. So yes, it was attractive for people to comment. And when you go to those the three leading parties that use social media, PPP, MPP, and NDC, the comments and interactions that they generate on each comment that they put up, was really amazing. And it got everybody engaged in the democratic process, to participate in what's happening. Before then, you couldn't approach, for instance, Nana Addo or John Mahama, that so this policy, you speaking out, you propagating, it's not going to work. What platform are you going to use? Which avenue? But the social media gives you the chance to actually question what the politicians are putting out and engage them on one-on-one. Though they hardly responded by themselves, but then you get some officials from the communication team who respond, and I believe the message will be carried through to the decision makers from then. So yes, it was attractive for people to participate in the conversation, the interaction, but then is it going to translate to votes? Is it going to translate to change of decisions? Is it going to make the decision refined and even better for us?
We'll be finding out from the parties as well. For them, in their analysis, do they think that this social media campaign that they have had an effect? But for you, looking at the interaction on social media, and it's amazing. For social media in Ghana, I think it's down to 3: Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems, and Google Plus as well.
Yeah.
But for these 4, did you find it that interactive? Did you find lots of young people going there, lots of older people going there?
So yeah, a bit of background. Blogging Ghana Decides is a social media project, and our idea or aim was to ensure that we inform Ghanaians on elections issues on social media, train Ghanaians, NGOs, individuals, and political parties on how to utilize social media tools, and also do community engagement around the country to find out what issues people were interested in to regard the elections. So we did that for the whole year, and I think. Yes, all those 4 platforms are quite important. So we utilized a lot of video from the communities who went to find out what they wanted regards to politics and elections. We utilized Facebook a lot. The page has about 12,000 likes on Facebook and Twitter. So I would say yes, those main tools, and also the Google Plus Hangout, which is a new entry which allows people to speak to more than 12 people. So, but Facebook, Twitter, and I would say YouTube are the main ones where Ghanaians are really engaged. For example, the amount of videos we put out on political issues, we've had over 100,000 views on our YouTube account. So Ghanaians want interactive stuff, they want interesting stuff, they want good imagery, on the minute news, and that's the advantage that we had as Ghana Decides, being able to report news straight up, getting people engaged in the conversation on the minute. So that's the advantage that we had with social media.
But did you think that the information that was put out by these parties or by these major players on social media campaign, did they really do enough?
I think they did good for a new a platform that they're utilizing. They did good. They use a lot of imagery, a lot of graphics, and I think the main 2 political parties was quite impressive as to how they put together information in graphical manner. Information that will go viral, information that people would like to share, and they did get lots of comments, and they also utilized a lot of sponsored ads especially getting towards the last week and during the period when they were not supposed to be advertising.
Yeah.
They utilized the online platforms to advertise, which is quite interesting and a new way of getting your message across in the last days. And also even during the voting day, there were still messages being put out on the platform. So I would say it's a good start, and it was an interesting way in which the political parties engaged.
Quite a new campaign, as you might put it. In 2008, we didn't see too much of it. This year, quite big. Do you think it made a needed advantage? Did it really draw people to a point of, look, I go in the morning on Facebook, I go and check my status, see what my friends are even talking about. But did it really make the impact? Did it catch the attention of many?
I mean, for me, it would be interesting to see what the parties say about this. It is always difficult to know how voters form their opinions, right? And then there is the game of numbers. We still, struggle with access to internet in this country. So not everybody is on Facebook and Twitter. It seems like people we know in Greater Accra are there, but most Ghanaians are not. So I think it's also probably a good decision of politicians to not put too much time into social media because most Ghanaians wouldn't see it, right? Okay. But then we have a huge following also of Ghanaians in the diaspora, people abroad, and we know that legally they have the right to vote, but still we haven't been able to make that happen, right? So maybe that's also something that's with social media they can push for, because I think that's an untapped resource right there. But when it comes to it was a very successful kind of first run, and I think we saw many examples of that. It really did work and really did create interest, and people learned more. We had a registration campaign, for instance, that I'm sure got more people to register.
What went into that campaign, for instance?
Yes,
we had the I Registered campaign earlier in the year, which was to get Ghanaians engaged and interested in going out to register, and people were encouraged to go out to register, take a picture of their voter's ID, and then share online, and then also encourage somebody else to go online. So we utilized Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube to get people to go out, and we had over 400 pictures being sent from around the country, with people voting. Some celebrities, Cole Casey, and a few other celebrities also sent the picture. So that was the first campaign we did early in the year. And then as the year progressed, we had other campaigns like My Vote, My Voice, which was at the latter end of the year. We had My Ghana Is, which was a campaign where people were to speak about what they wanted Ghana to be and what they thought Ghana was. And we had Ghana Speaks, which was an also offline campaign where people had a speech bubble and they wrote a message of what they wanted Ghana to be. For example, I want Ghana to be peaceful. And we utilized both online and offline because, as Kaiser mentioned, there's only 1.6 million Ghanaians on Facebook, and Twitter, the numbers are not even out there. So we are very aware that we have to go offline with your message also, hence why we traveled around the country with a message. Take those key messages offline, put it online, and let those people who are online discuss it, and also inform Ghanaians who are offline. But I think the numbers regards to the eyes on what happened during the election week are quite impressive. So I don't know if you want us to go into
Certainly.
that. So for Ghana Decides, if we look at our platforms, we had over 12.5 million impressions, which means for 5 million eyes looking at the messages we put out there across the platforms we used. Interactions that we had between people was about 33,000, and we had about 15,000 unique people actually communicating with us, and which was quite good. We also had people from across the world who are engaged in that. Ghana Decides, the hashtag trended worldwide. MPP, NDC, and Mahama also trended worldwide, which is never happened in Ghana for in the world.
I think we just have to stop and say how great that is. It's never really happened before that a Ghanaian
message or a Ghanaian event
has been a worldwide trend. Do you understand how big that is?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, but again, in this election,
yeah,
I still can't help but talk about it. In this election, there were 14 million voters, 1.7 million on Facebook.
Yeah,
we don't have the stats even for Twitter and for YouTube.
Yeah,
but with that number, was it really worth the hassle for these parties to go on this social campaign?
It definitely was, because I mentioned the impressions. The impressions were 12.5 million, and even though you're targeting X amount of people see it, the magnification from that is bigger. And also, we all know that the margins from who won and who didn't win the last time was only 40,000. So if out of the 1.6 million you were able to convince even half of them.
But hold on, for the 12.5 million, is it guaranteed that each one was a unique 2 eyeballs that actually watched it, or it was one person doing it again and again and again?
So I mean, even for country-wise, you could say impressions per location. We had 261,000 from Ghana, 32,000 from the UK, 15,000 from England, and 10,000 from Nigeria. Those are the main 4 countries. So you can't. It's not specific. It's not specific science. But then it's encouraging to show that over 12.5 million people were engaged with Ghana's elections, and I think it's a big step. And I mean, organizations such as Joy FM having all that information being put out, live coverage, I think that made a big difference, because people were watching on TV, same times being online, being on the computer, being on their phone, and comparing and engaging with the conversation. The conversation from, for example, the Joy FM live YouTube stream had people speaking on the side. So I think it's come to stay. Social media and our elections is something that.
And then I would like to add that. Since we see a bigger, younger following on social media, it's very likely that you have many first-time voters being informed by what happens on social media, and I think that's extremely important to the parties to catch people young, so to speak, because if you have voted for a party once, the likelihood for you to follow their messages in the future are bigger.
Okay, well, Jerry, I was asking the question. The numbers, okay, I can understand the first-timers having a go, seeing this on social media, gets them to understand what this whole election was about. But was it really the hustle? Look at the numbers: 1.7 million on Facebook, yes, 12.5 million impressions on YouTube. But was it enough? Was it enough to have a go on it?
Yes. Still, we our internet penetration is still the issues with it. But if there has to be a start. We have to get to the Americas one day, and this is it for us. I think it's enough, because it's a way of also, once we get the politicians on board who are also understanding it and using it, a lot of MPs are on it. There was a project we did on post-elections. They have district assemblies actually opening Facebook accounts, and they are putting out their development plans there. The politicians are putting on their campaign promises and manifestos there, and this is actually a way of documenting what's happening during the elections. So they actually now, they can't just go and say on the campaign platform in the transient way that you can pin them to it. They've actually written it down on Facebook or on Twitter, which we can retrieve and hold them accountable to it. So it's actually helping our democracy, to grow, as well as in the post-election era. You can actually, even though it's a few of us on it, you can actually get the politicians engaged and ask them, what are you doing about this particular promise? It's not just about the elections.
No, I'm excited. I will follow my district assembly on Facebook.
Yeah. I wanted to say that it's not necessarily just the political parties. As I mentioned, Ghana Decides as training, and we train the IEA, we train the Electoral Commission, we train CDD, we train IDEC. And if you notice these,
train them on what specifically?
On how to utilize social media for the elections, how to utilize social media to get their messages across, how to utilize social media and digital marketing to do their work. And if you look at all these platforms during the elections, CODEO, IDEC, IEA, and also the Electoral Commission, which for the first time put election results on Facebook, which has never happened worldwide. And it shows you how interesting and how important social media is. In the instance where the EC's website was down, which we kind of foresaw and spoke to them about, they had to use Facebook, which we prompted them to utilize to get results up, even though they would have put the results on the website before. And people didn't believe it, but that was something that, because they were equipped and they'd been trained on how to utilize social media to get a message across, it really helped. And I mean, it helped with their communication, because they had no other way of getting people to know why the website was out. So first and foremost, engaging people online and saying our website is down because of this reason, and then going further to actually put the results out there, I think is a big plus for Ghana and a big plus for social media. So from our perspective, getting the messages across, getting Ghanaians engaged, getting conversations online. Offline and on radio, sometimes the conversation is all about insults and egos, but online we were able to have conversations that were about messages. All the manifestos were shared online. We took out messages from the manifestos and got Ghanaians to speak about it. So from the Ghana Decides perspective, making the conversation about issues, we think it's a big plus, and we couldn't have done that without social media.
I can understand the difference between the kind of language you find on traditional media and on social media, but we'll have a further discussion on how well was the language on social media as compared to traditional media. We're taking a critical look at that. But the internet saturation in Ghana is nothing to write home about, especially compared to developed countries. did we really nail it? Did it go around enough for people to get to know about it?
I think as somebody who is organizing social media users in Ghana, what we always say is that we have an indirect effect. We also have plenty. Ghana is a radio nation. People listen to radio, people watch TV at times, people at times go online. But radio is kind of where we all gather. And you see radio shows picking up what is online all the time. They want to interact with people on Facebook and Twitter. They read what is out there. They take part of the discussion kind of for their listeners and bring that online discussion offline through radio. So I think we say that's 1.6 or whatever it is million Ghanaians have access to internet, but many more through radio and TV have access to it. So I think we need not worry. We're going in the right direction, and there is discussion.
In as much as Jerry, you had a point.
And at the moment we keep on saying, I think we are thinking more of owning a laptop or iPad or a smartphone, but then now we have feature phones, your standard Nokia stuff that comes with Twitter and Facebook. So people actually in the rural areas, with the connectivity to, or having access to MTN or Zain or what have you, can actually also go online. So it's not really all in the big cities, but then people having access to feature phones, and it's not like the elites who have it now. Most of the university kids have either a smartphone or a feature phone who can actually also go online and participate in the discussions around elections. So yes, even the 1.7 million Facebook, it could be more. It could be more than that.
I think with the internet penetration is a big issue, and I think it should hopefully can improve. But the problem is with more the telecommunications companies. At the moment, Ghana only has one major fixed broadband provider, and at the moment their prices are not as competitive. So if the other telcos can be competitive, and if maybe the government can encourage the fixed broadband company to give good competitive prices, then our internet penetration will increase. And on the bigger scale of things, Ghana as a nation would suffer if our internet penetration stays the same way, and if our market doesn't become competitive.
How will it suffer?
It would suffer because technology is one of the main areas in which Ghana has an advantage. We've jumped a generation from fixed phone lines to mobile phones, and the next generation in which we can make advances is in technology. There's so many startups started now in this country, but because of the expensive broadband that we have in this country.
Let me hold you just for a minute. Just for a minute. We have visuals of the statistics for how many were even trending on YouTube, on Facebook. That's Nanado's Facebook page. He had over 100,000 likes. For Twitter, he had over 2,000 tweets and over 9,000 people following. On YouTube, over 400,000 video views and 956 subscribers actually on YouTube. Well, interesting as it is, but did it really catch the attention? I keep asking, because you see, for some people, they go on Facebook, they just want to share their apolitical views, but you get there and there's one message there from one party or the other, and it's like, okay, I don't want to talk about it, but I can't also avoid it because I'm here already. Was that at a point? Did it become like an invasion?
I think Ghanaians, if during the time when it's politics, Ghanaians are really engaged and they're interested. And we also don't have to forget that people take these videos and they also share by phone, by Bluetooth. And things can go viral quite easily offline. So those kind of messages that people take online, the rumors, the things that may not necessarily be true, or campaign messages, people are also taken offline. So I think Ghanaians were interested in these things. And advertising, if they're paying for it, you can't really escape it. So people didn't really have a choice. So it's something that I think was useful to people. The IEA debates, for example, Ayariga trended so many times, and it's because
on Twitter as well.
Yeah, on Twitter. So we covered all those debates live, and people who were not having access to TVs or radio followed through those platforms. So in those instances, we think it's quite useful to have social media.
Okay.
Okay, one of the reasons why we set up the African Elections Project was basically to get people more engaged in the democratic process. And also the key is the youth. You find that most African countries, the youth actually form the majority of the population, if you take the youth from say 18 to 35, for instance. And these are the guys. I will not go to a political party rally. I don't think any of us here will go to a political party rally. So where do you hear some of these messages? And it's through the social media platforms. That's where the use of it comes in. So I can pick it. My friend who is not on social media will hear the message from me.
Yeah.
The person will go to school. And when you go to university campuses, we find this in all over the African countries that we've been to. You go to university campuses and people discuss it. One person who has the phone or has access to the messages that come in, and you find them actually sitting on the trees, debating over it. And they get some of this content from social media to discuss. So it is very useful to be on it. And I think the politicians have analyzed it and have understood it, and they are on and using it actively throughout the whole campaign. And even they use it to motivate people to come out to vote on the elections day. We found that all the key politicians who voted actually sent a picture out on their platforms that I voted. And basically it gives you the confidence, in the democratic process that it can be done. Why don't I go out to do it? So it is good because it gives you the images which the radio doesn't. TV does, but me being in the queue, for instance, on my phone, I can, whilst waiting for my verification machine to work, I can be browsing and checking out what is happening around the country, pertaining to the elections. So it is good that we're online and we are using the social media platforms.
But I had a comment on the numbers up there. What struck me was how many views Akufo-Addo had on YouTube. And I think that might be something. I was talking about how we have a large following in the diaspora, and that might come from there, because I don't think our broadband or our internet access is always as good that we can see things on YouTube. It doesn't always work very quickly. It's not my preferred use of social media, but I know in Europe and elsewhere that really YouTube is even the new Google. When you want to know something, you YouTube it.
But again, there were other issues as well. I mean, on social media, you had lots of messages flying around. Talk about a rumor mill, for instance, and unconsciously, you find the media keeping an eye there as well. Did it not raise issues also about credibility of information that we had?
For Ghana Decides, as a non-partisan platform, it was difficult. We had to really ensure that the messages we put on were balanced. So we covered every single political party's event that we were invited to, or that we invited ourselves to. We covered lectures, we covered rallies, and that making sure that you have that platform which is balanced, it's difficult, but you try and encourage people. When people used to come on our platforms to be abusive or insulting, we just told them this platform is non-partisan. We don't allow parties stand here. We don't allow this. We mention it to you once. We delete a comment if it's offensive, and if you re-offend, we block you. And that's the thing. Moderation is key on these platforms. I mean, you did have some Facebook pages springing up which were defaming certain political leaders, which actually were pushed with ads, and which had a lot of people following it within a short space of time. But what we realized eventually was that people from the other parties were coming and defending their people, even though one party was actually utilizing that platform, which was quite negative, images of guns and images which are not truthful. So you had the people coming out and balancing it out. So I think it's good, and it's good for encouraging, but I think platforms and news agencies should actually put a lot of effort into moderation and ensuring that it's clean. Otherwise, it does.
Speaking of that, was the language on these Facebook, Twitter pages for these political parties, was it clear enough? Was it decent enough?
From the platforms or from the individuals?
From on the platform, you had people commenting. You had them also giving out messages. Was it clean? Was it decent enough? Was it well managed?
From the Ghana Decides platform, we were able to manage it well and make it about issues and always bring it back to issues. But on other platforms, you found there were a lot of insults and a lot of anger, and surprisingly, especially during the election day and the days after, you had a lot of people inciting people to do certain things, or people insulting, or a lot of tribalism, which was quite sad, because you would expect the savvy Ghanaians who are online not to go that way. So I think in that instance, we have a lot of work to do to sensitize people on not using social media as a way of getting the negative aspect. So yes, it could get bad, but with right moderation, you can get the conversations to be about issues and common sense.
Well, Jerry, you monitored. Was it really that bad?
It was in certain instances, but as part of this, our Ghana elections project, we use social media and offline SMS to actually monitor incidents of violence. And then we had which is inbuilt to an Ishahidi map for an early warning system. So basically we pick stuff from social media, through SMS as well, and we feed it into our Ishahidi map. Not all messages were posted though, but then the critical ones was pushed to the security agencies. You can't rely totally on messages that were sent on social media in instances of reporting irregularities and violence, for instance. So we always have to cross-check. In our case, monitoring violence, it can easily be used as a host or easily be used to paint the other person black. So, of course, once you pick it up, we actually set up a social media tracking center where we're tracking certain handles and using certain keywords to pick out the language and what's being used, on this Ghana elections. And whatever we picked, we cross-check with we're working with CODIO, so we cross-check with their field officers on the ground. We're also working with the Ghana Journalists Association members. So we call journalists on the ground as well to find out, okay, this is what people are saying, that there's a ballot box being snatched, say at Joy FM polling station. Is it true? So you cross-verify before you rebroadcast what is happening. I think social media has a way of checking itself as well. If your handle or your Facebook page keeps on spewing insults or untruths, you realize that you find less and less people coming to you for information, unless they're all like-minded like you, who enjoys that sort of thing. But then serious people will stop. It's a way of actually checking itself, and you become irrelevant as time goes on.
But did you find too much of that in your observation? Did you find any of the political parties' Facebook, Twitter handles doing a lot more of negative campaigning?
The official handles, for instance, you had an official NPP handle, you had an official NDC, you have the JD Mahama, you have the NADA 2012. Those PKM, those handles were very, very decent, I would say. We didn't pick any insults from those official handles. But then you have people who are aligned to the political parties, especially on Facebook. Twitter, it wasn't that much. But on Facebook, that's where the language, I think was, that we need to, as going on, we need to sensitize people. We need to find a way of, rebuking those people for using such language.
Yes. In Blogging Ghana, where we organize social media users, we have bloggers, we have people who are on Twitter and Facebook. We do talk about the legal ramifications of crossing the threshold, and I think it's quite important that sometimes it's kind of easy to hide behind the screen or behind your phone. You can say things that you probably wouldn't say to a person face to face. So it's something that we have to say, that you're still within the laws of Ghana, and if you defame somebody, they can take you to court, etc. So for instance, for us, we have regular trainings on this, where we bring it up when we have our yearly meeting, the blog camp. We usually have a session on the legal aspect. We also have a recurring event on Twitter, which is called the Ghana Law Hour, where a legal professional who is a member of our organization answers questions, and within this election period he has answered legal questions relating to the election and to the Supreme Court and issues like that.
But for political parties using social media, for instance, is it that expensive? Because if you had 8 contestants, for instance, and in the end you find 3 being active, well, we do know that Henry Latte also used, the GCPP's Henry Latte used, he says he used social media to campaign. But is it really expensive for any political party to go into that?
Yes, I think people think social media is free, but first and foremost, it takes time and it takes a lot of thinking. Any message you put out there, if it's not well thought out and not well structured with images or video, will fail. And unfortunately, Facebook now charges for you to get your messages out. If you have 100,000 people on your Facebook page, only 16% actually see every single post you put there. So if you really want the rest of the people to see it, you have to pay for it. And I think the PPP use quite a lot of ads. It'll be interesting to see how much money they spent, because it's expensive. It's relatively expensive. Not as expensive as taking a full page ad I mean, if you take a full page ad for 2,000 cedis, which is almost $1,000, I think you can get more impressions with Facebook ads, and you can reach more people online for that kind of money. So it's relative, and I think it's catching up on traditional media, and it's probably more affordable to utilize Facebook ads than traditional advertising. And you can target it. I can target it specifically to a person who likes Joy TV, a person who's this age, a person who lives in this area. So the targeted aspect of Facebook advertising and online advertising is
should that be what the party should be looking at, for instance?
I think they did. I think they utilize targeted ads, and it's quite easy for Ghana because if you know they're only 1.6 million, you do online from Ghana, you just target all the 1.6 million online. And I mean, I think people use a lot of Google ads, banners on most of the pages, and all that is targeted. They can track you, they can find out which website you like and your age, your demography, and it's really exciting to see how that online advertising space is going to open up.
Okay, so I'm asking, the three parties used a lot of it. So for the other five, what should they be considering? I mean, in terms of how to operate it and use it to their benefit.
I think more for the other five, they should have utilized it the most, because to the free aspect of it, if you do it well and you engage well, you don't really have to use the money because you get traction and people come to you for that content. He mentioned earlier the fact that if you're an authority or if people believe that you're truthful. So as a small party, you should utilize social media. Apart from, I mean, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, you've got Instagram, you've got Pinterest, you've got so many other platforms you can really utilize. And also blogging, which is something that people don't really realize. The keywords, Google's the biggest search engine, and the way Google will find you is if you have good content. So by providing good content and being a sort of a mini news hub as a political party, you can really get people to find out what you're about and what your message is. So more so the smaller parties than the bigger parties should be really utilizing and squeezing a lot of stuff out of social media.
Jerry, looking into the future for 2016, should the parties necessarily concentrate well enough, plan well enough for social media in the future for 2016?
Yeah, they should do. They should be part of the Ghana elections training that we did for some of the civil societies. They should be part of the training that Ghana decides that's for political parties and the civil societies. I think it's more getting them to understand the power of social media, the power of blogging. Blogging, you don't have to now that I'm going to sit down and think about how I'm going to write a lead, and you just write as it comes to you. So write about your campaign rally, for instance. It's simple, and the message stays there, so I can go back to it and read it whenever I want to. Unlike the rally after it closes, that's it. If I don't hear what is being said and I've lost out. But this one, you can actually go to it whenever, and then also using they should gear towards using more, because you can actually target your audience and reach out a wider audience as well. For your rally or for TV, if I don't switch it on, then it's gone. But if I post my video on YouTube, I'll reach a wider audience.
It's not transient.
Yes, like Akufo-Addo's was for 460,000 people. I can go and click on it now. I become the 461 person to have watched it. So it keeps on increasing on a wider, to a wider audience. Your message gets across more than just using the normal traditional media. Still is very important, but they should utilize it more, because it doesn't really cost you that much to use the social media platforms compared to doing regular color adverts in the dailies. Now is it costs you an arm and a leg, but using the target adverts, some of them is like $100 for a whole year. So you can do it so many various platforms.
So we'll be taking a look at that, but let's take a short break now. But when we come back, we'll be talking to representatives of the two major political parties on how their social media campaigns fared and get some more analysis. We'll be right back. Welcome back to your election headquarters here on the Joy News channel on Multi TV. Today we are taking a look at how the political parties made good use, or is it more than good use, of the social media in the run-up to the elections and even post-elections. Joining me now in the studio to my extreme left is Cole Isuman. He worked on the social media for the New Patriotic Party.
That's right.
All right. And also Peter Boama Otukono. He worked on the social media for the NDC. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me this morning. Now, Cole, I'll come straight to you. What kind of role did the social media play in your campaign process?
Well, Thank you very much, and good morning to your listeners and viewers. Social media, we identified that it was a key aspect of campaigning. We had started, using social media in the last campaign, but that hadn't caught on in Ghana for some time. It hadn't caught on in Ghana properly. But this campaign, we had noticed that quite a lot of young people were on the internet and social media to speak of. And we thought that to reach out with our message to the young people, because this election, the past elections was about the young people and policies that affect their lives. We thought we'd put our information out there on the internet where they spend most of their time and let them have access to the candidate, so they could ask questions and give suggestions as to how the campaign should be run. So that's exactly what we did. We got together our policies, our manifesto, and everything, and put it out online for people to debate and see that this is what we're all about. So that's essentially the role that they played in our campaign.
What about you, Peter? You had 37 days to campaign.
Yeah,
How
sure.
important was this for you?
Yeah, it was very important because we realized that from 2008, social media or internet in general was becoming very popular in Ghana. And so then if you would want to reach the larger populace, you may have to use the social media. In 2008, we created a page for Professor Mills. By the end of the election, we had about 15,000 people liking the page and following Professor Mills. Because of continuity, we lost, that account, and we couldn't continue. It was actually hacked into. So then we had to create a new account for Professor Mills. By the time we got to 2012, we had about close to about 18,000, followers for Professor Mills. But it so happened that he wasn't going into the election after all. So within this short period, we had to create a page for President John Mahama. But President John Mahama had been very active on Facebook even before he became the president, when he was a vice president and so on and so forth. So he had a lot of followers. So it became a very critical aspect of our politics. We used Facebook, we used Twitter, we used Flickr and so on and so forth. And we used the internet in general, the websites, we were linking our stories and so on and so forth, our campaign pictures and so on and so forth on Facebook. And it was wholly very effective. In fact, we drew the cue from Obama's campaign in 2008. And nobody can underestimate how America in general, use the social media. We thought that at first it would be a problem in Ghana because majority of our followers, especially NDC, are, the grassroots people from the villages and so on and so forth. And these are people who don't have access to the internet. They don't have access to, the social media and so on and so forth. So we were wondering, it was a bit of a problem. So then we had to devise a two-pronged approach of, communicating to the people. So whilst we are doing the social media to get in touch with the youth, the young guys, those who are having access to internet, we develop a grassroots approach to getting, the people, on the grounds. I mean, our usual support base, and it worked very, very effectively. What we didn't do was how to use the social media negatively. It has its own benefits, marginal social benefits, and the marginal social cost to whatever that we are doing. You understand? But clearly, the marginal social benefit outweighs that of the cost. Because somebody can put any information on the internet and it is not verified. They can just write something and people will just read it and take it like that.
You not found one thing of that as well?
Yeah, no, it was a big problem for our campaign, because I recall that our communication team, those who do the usual social media work and all those things, were advised, and they have been strongly advised by the campaign team and even the president not to go to that extent. So you realize that the difference was very clear on the social media, and I think that also affected the MPP's campaign, and that went to our favor, because what we were putting on the social media was real facts. We were campaigning, talking about the issues, and leaving out, manufactured lies, concoctions, and so on and so forth.
I'll come back to you.
And that was very effective.
Come back to you on that. But on the issue of hacking, he's raised it, and there was also an issue about the Electoral Commission's website that was hacked into. How-
No, it wasn't. It was crash. It
It was crashed. Okay,
Yeah.
but how do we handle this issue of people hacking into people's accounts, verification issues on even Twitter as well? How do we handle this?
I guess it's just security. I mean, make sure your password is solid. It has alphanumeric keys and parts and stuff in there. Making sure that you protect the data. With the website going down, it's just making sure that they have a good website company giving them that bandwidth. I mean, I think it shows that Ghana is people are really using the internet, because I think even most of the major news websites have crashed at one point in time. In instances when there was a Melcom issue, when the former president passed away, websites have crashed because there's so much attention and so much traffic coming to it. So it's just making preparations and preparing, really. It can happen to anyone. It's the internet, but as a sensitive organization like a political party, you really have to protect your online presence.
Well, Cole,
Yes.
in this election, in fact, you had a huge e-campaign, I remember, at the Kofi Annan ICT
Yes,
Center.
we did.
And what kind of impact did this social media campaign have on your electoral fortunes?
Now, like I indicated in my first response, we used the social media to put out information for people to have access. We held the e-campaign because we thought that it launched because we thought that it was necessary to enable, sort of give people an idea as to where to go if they wanted information. So, Akufo-Addo had a website, and he spoke about, websites crashing. We identified that problem until we expanded the bandwidth and, the space that we had, the internet space that we had, to make sure that at any point in time, when we had a lot of people coming onto our website, we had enough bandwidth to have a lot of people access the information that they wanted to, because we had videos on there, we had pictures that had, some of them had very high resolutions. Now, following from the e-campaign, we noticed a significant increase in the number of followers that we had and the number of people that patronized our pages on the internet, our websites, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. I can give you some stats. For instance, on YouTube, at the e-campaign launch, when I did the talk, I stated that we had only 55,000 views. But today, we're close to about 500,000. On Twitter, we had about 4,000, but we're close to about 10,000 now. On Facebook, we had about 70-something thousand, but we're close to about 190,000. So you can see that within a span of about 4 months, the numbers have increased, and the participation has even gotten, higher. People have watched our videos, have watched our photos, have engaged our candidate and our party on certain issues. Another thing that it helped was that we had a hotline. We had a phone bank where people could call in with their issues, and it helped particularly on election day, because we had a photo, sort of a graphic that we put up on Nana's page with a number, and anytime people went to a polling station, for instance, there weren't enough ballot papers or something like that came up, they immediately called so that we could address it.
But how did this social media campaign, I mean, there's talk about what does this do in helping to translate into votes for you? Did you see a certain correlation between this campaign and how it translated into votes for you?
Yes, like I said, our numbers increased and the participation and engagement, increased as well. So we got a lot of new voters and, young voters actually voting. I mean, you can't tell what they actually voted for on day, but you can tell in the amount of people that participated on your page, that engaged you, that talked, that followed, that you actually had an impact on the sort of demographic that you were trying to reach, which is what we did. On YouTube, for instance, we thought that if you put stuff online, the tendency of people going through about a 50-page manifesto might be too long. So we broke down our manifesto into videos, and we put it out there so you could listen 10 minutes, come back another day, listen to another portion. And I can tell you, some of the videos hit about 10,000 within 2 days. So I in terms of votes, people actually listened to our policy. They read about it online, and they went out and they voted massively for us. Yeah.
But now that tentatively the elections are over, how are you going to use the social media?
But before I move to that, you see, what is happening with the social media is that it is not about the number of followers that you are having. It is not about the number of views that you are having. What it is that I am an NDC person. I would want to follow your page and know what you are doing. A lot of NDC people are following NPP's page. A lot of NPP people are following NDC's page. So it is not usually about the numbers that you have following you, but it's about the issues that you put across. If one person views it and he thinks that it's nice, he copies it, pastes it on Facebook, links it to several other people, they will also view it. It may not be recorded, as people who are following you or something, but they have seen it. So it's about the content of what you put out. That is very significant. Now to your question, we are going to continue to use the social media, especially now that we have won the election. It is very
subject to challenge, but
that challenge obviously we know where it will end. But then
the Supreme Court.
But then we are going to use it very, very effectively. Government communication is very significant, and if there is anything that we have done very effectively in the last 4 years that has yielded results, is government communication. We have done very well because we have been able to communicate to the people what we are doing, what we have achieved, the unprecedented achievements and so on, and they have appeared in so many forms. We have used the social media and we are going to continue to use it. For the first time under Professor Mills, we had the presidency website, www.presidency.gov.gh, which we were, managing on daily basis, putting issues out. President is commissioning this, president is doing that, president is doing this, and it gets people informed. You understand? We had the presidency page, which is not the personal Facebook page of the president, but a presidency page on official matters. The things that he is doing on daily basis are put on Facebook, on Twitter, and so on and so forth. So we are going to continue to use the social media because it is very crucial. We must reach the people, especially the youth, because when you look at countries where they have gone into.
Let me hold you on that one, Peter, quickly, because we have on the line right now Mr. Kissie Jabin to speak to us about that incident that happened in Kumasi yesterday with respect to the demonstration. A very good morning to you, and thanks for joining us here on Election Headquarters.
Good morning.
Now, this demonstration was in two breaths. The leadership was saying that they have a good case they're pushing in court and that the supporters should be resolute, they should be patient about it. But for the supporters, it's like they have a verdict in their head already. Now, how does this help the legal case of the NPP in the first place?
Well, it doesn't add to it and it doesn't detract from it. There are several ways of putting one's views across as far as the legal processes are concerned in a situation like this. If a person feels his vote does not amount to much as far as the electoral process is concerned, of course, the person is at liberty to engage in a peaceful demonstration. That has nothing to do with the court process. It doesn't bear on it at all. They are distinctively different. Of course, the court is not going to inform itself as to what happens outside of it. It will be extraneous as far as it is concerned, so it's not going to concern itself with the demonstration at all.
But if there is a lot of public outcry by these supporters, wouldn't this in any way? The courts are human beings in there as well. They listen to media, they hear the events that are happening. You're sure this will not affect them in any way?
See, you cannot downplay the human factor as far as our institutions are concerned, and you are right to say that they are human beings. But then they are also professionally trained lawyers who have become judges. So it is their training which is going to count, and not whatever the public out there says. And by their training, they are not supposed to take into consideration extraneous matters. What they are supposed to take into consideration is the evidence that is placed before them.
Okay, well, moving on, just to touch a bit on the social media, how the political parties made use of it. Are there legal issues with respect to the kind of comments that even come out, slanderous comments by certain elements of certain political parties, even on social media?
whatever you put out there for the consumption of another person, if you are not talking to yourself or talking to the person involved, and you are putting something out there, if it is defamatory of the person can take you on as far as the law is concerned. The law is there to protect our reputations and our names. So if by social media you are impugning on someone's reputation unfairly or unlawfully, the person can take you on. As far as the communication is to another person, the person can, it's defamatory, the person can sue you.
Okay, I would want you to hold on for me just for a minute. I just want you to have a listen. Let's have a look also at the address by the NPP National Chairman, Jacob Echibilamte, in Kumasi yesterday.
I'm here to give you the commitment of the leadership of your party that the struggle continues. The struggle is not over. We shall continue with this struggle until victory is ours. I'm also here to tell you that the leadership of the party has heard you. We heard you even before you spoke. That's why the National Executive Committee rejected the results. And we said we will challenge the results in the Supreme Court and strengthen our country. I apologize that Nana Akufo-Addo is not here today, but we asked him to stay back and work with the lawyers, work with the law team to put the case together and make sure that when we take that case to court, there is no chance that it can be lightly dismissed.
And that was the national chairman of the NPP, Jacob Echibilamte, addressing party supporters in Kumasi yesterday. Mr. Jabin, quickly before I let you go,
Yes.
the supporters are still anxiously waiting. They want a certain verdict go their way. But should this end? Should this protest, should these marches end? So the legal process is the only one we should look at for, looking into the future. What should be done?
You know, as far as there are peaceful protests and peaceful demonstrations, really, what's the big deal about them? For instance, personally speaking, okay, if I am told that some other people voted without verification, I'll feel very, very hard done by. Why? Because when I voted in a Sujiman constituency, the machine almost rejected me. I had to try so many times. So my vote was so scrutinized before I was able to exercise my franchise. But if I'm being told that some other people, it was just a field day, they could just go without any verification, I feel that I'd been discriminated against because I was more scrutinized than some other people. It's as if their vote was more important than mine, and it appears to infringe against the Equal Protection Clause in the Constitution. So as far as demonstrations are peaceful, as far as the protests are peaceful, no one can take that from them. But if they degenerate into something otherwise than peaceful, then of course it cannot continue like that.
But if they speak about certain persons being allowed to vote without verification, is that fact or that's hearsay what they've heard about?
I can't hold brief for them. That is why I said that if I were to hear that something like that went on, I'll feel very aggrieved because, as I said, the machine almost rejected me. I'm not holding brief for them that they are speaking on fact. But if that is the basis upon which they are proceeding, then what I characterize them as saying is that their vote was more scrutinized than the votes of others, and that will amount to discrimination under the Equal Protection Clause. So if a person is protesting on the basis of that, and it is a peaceful demo, let me emphasize, as far as it is peaceful and it does not infringe upon the rights of others, they are at liberty to do that.
Many thanks.
It ends where it becomes riotous or unlawful.
All right. Many thanks to you, Mr. Kissie Jabin, for joining us here this morning with the legal perspectives to this particular issue. Returning to you, gentlemen, for you, yes, the parties use social media in this year's election. Looking up to 2016, what should they avoid and what should they promote?
I think 2016 there'll be new technologies and I guess more interaction, combining more offline, online stuff. Hopefully the internet penetration will be greater. More people will have more smartphones and hence finding out ways in which they can connect that. But I think the big thing outside is big data. Mining data on who is online, what you're doing, who are your followers and stuff. And I think the political parties find means of ways of syncing that data on their followers online with the offline work, prompting them to do the groundwork for them, going out to get people to vote, going out to get people to be engaged, to put their messages online. I think there's not a lot of use of the data that is available. I think they have their information offline, but the online data and connecting all the databases they have and utilizing that to really push their campaigns and having a serious machinery through using social media. I think 2016, that'll be interesting to see how that happens.
Well, Cole, I just want to know from you, in this bit you talk about interactivity.
Yes.
Did Nonado personally tweet, or it was a matter of the communication team handling it themselves for both Facebook, Twitter, and all the other social media platforms?
Yes, I always have questions come to me about that. There's some tweets that we run by Nonado before we put out. Some of his Facebook messages, he personally responds to them. His daughters were the ones who encouraged him to get a Facebook account, and then his press secretary, Herbert Crapper, set it up. So there are times when, there was a time I remember he was in Brongahafo, I can't remember where exactly, but it was in Brongahafo, and we needed to put out a video. And he actually recorded it and said, they did a little bit of runs with the video, and when it was okay, Herbert said Nana wants this on his YouTube, and then we put it up. You would note that there's on his YouTube channel, there's also there's a last video that he released just before the elections, asking people to come out and vote for him. We suggested it to him, and he thought that it's a good idea to reach out to the people, personal stories about his campaign on the ground and all of that. And then he put it out there. His messages, his emails, most of them he goes through them. There are some that ask standard questions, so, about the policy, about how we're going to afford free SHS, etc., etc. Those are dealt with, but there's some that are a bit more personal and directed at Nana, and he goes through them every evening, writes answers next to them and sends them to us to respond to. So it's actually Nana who response to this message. We can't put out something without his approval. Our heads will be off.
I got you. But Peter, with President John Mahama, did he personally tweet? Did he personally go on Facebook, give reactions to messages that people were sending to him?
President Mahama has been doing that for quite some time now. If you have monitored very well, whenever he's on a program, even when he's on the days, he's working on his phone. He does a lot of tweeting, a lot of Facebooking, even before he became president. And he controlled, most of the tweets and Facebook messages that we put out. What we did was that, apart from his personal account, we created one for the campaign, which we were managing. Because of the stress of the campaign, he could not, do it regularly. So then we had to be doing it on his behalf. So when questions come in, we just note it down, give it to him. He makes an input, then we put it out, and so on and so forth. But occasionally he did the tweets, he did the Facebook himself, put the information out. And sometimes he was doing WhatsApp too. WhatsApp is one thing that we used very much in this election. We got most of our top guys, ministers and so on and so forth, to hook up to WhatsApp. So when we send you something, then you wire it to everybody on your WhatsApp list, and it worked very, very well. So if you realize, I don't know whether you were on my WhatsApp list, but you'll be getting some videos and some messages and so on and so forth. It was very, very, very effective. If President Mahama wants to put something out, he may WhatsApp it to us, then immediately we have to, just wire it out. So all in all, it was very, very effective, and I am very sure that now that we have finished the election, we are going to continue on the same path.
Tentatively.
Yes, we finished actually. We are going to continue on the same path, and President Mahama will continue to be directly in touch with the people. When you go to our website, thepresidency.gov.gh, what we were doing with Professor Mills was that we have Ask the President's column, where anybody could come in and just put in the questions and so on and so forth. Then at the end of the day, we put it all together, give it to Professor Mills, where he would want to make an input. He makes where we can do some answers. We do it and mail it back to the recipient.
Consider WhatsApp as well?
Yes, we had a WhatsApp database that we use as well. We also considered BBM. So you find that quite a number of messages came through WhatsApp. Videos, we compressed them because some of the videos were large and you couldn't send them over BBM. BBM had a maximum of 5 megabytes. WhatsApp had a larger. But if you want to get a video to someone quickly, it's best to get in 1 megabyte or 2 megabytes. So we did that. We use WhatsApp a lot and BlackBerry Messenger.
How did you sanitize your social media platforms? In a season like that, politics can make you write a whole manner of things. You can get a lot of reactions. How did you sanitize yours for the NPP?
For us, what we did was we noticed that leading up, in 2008, there was a lot of information that was put out there about our candidates which were untrue and blatantly false. But going into this election, we knew that whatever we did, we had to make sure that any information that was put out there, we had to counter it immediately. Otokuno mentioned that anyone can put out information, out there. You have no control over it. That's one of the disadvantages of having social media campaigns and internet campaigns. It's unfortunate, but it happens. It's a reality you have to deal with. But at the end of the day, you have a responsibility to portray your candidate in a certain light, in a true light, to give people a better understanding of who he is, what he's all about, and what he can deliver for the country. So that's what we try to do to sort of sanitize all of this.
So for the reactions you got on your page, that was in bad taste. How did you handle something like that?
So, with some of the reactions that had to do with our policies, we directed the people to where they could read about our policies or listen to the videos. Some of them were personal attacks. We had supporters who would, for instance, say that, "Oh, what you're saying is not a nice thing. You may want to, withdraw that." Or we simply don't respond to personal attacks. It's better not to entertain such things. And we tried to, as much as we could, sort of portray the candidate in the best manner. If someone said, "Oh, Nana Addo, for instance, is a lazy man," or something along those lines, he has a biography, things that he's done. So we hit on the bullet points to show that this is what he's done, this is what he's achieved for Ghana, this is what he's achieved in his personal life, this is what he's achieved in his political life and family life.
Okay. Now, Peter, how did the NDC handle social media, sanitizing language to make sure that everyone gets a decent message every time?
The NDC has always been, very diligent on the social media, except that on few occasions you have people who have their personal accounts who are sympathetic to your party, who may want to put something out. But we were advised, as I said earlier on, President was very, very strict on that because he was monitoring. He monitors the social media, his page, and things that there are other people who are actually in the communication team are putting on Facebook. So he was very critical on that. And so if you really monitor the social media, you will see that the NDC was doing much of a very decent campaign on Facebook compared to our colleagues on the other side. If you've been monitoring from 2009, they just went on the offensive on Facebook, and they have a couple of guys who will just throw anything at all. I recall that on my page, on a daily basis, they will do some cartoon, take your picture, change it, do some horrific things and put it on Facebook. They did it to the president. They took some picture of somebody sleeping at the poolside with only the legs, and some beautiful lady there saying that, "Oh, that's the president in Brazil." So there are a lot of things that they did on Facebook, which I thought was very, very uncalled for. I think they didn't make any attempt at all to sanitize their.
But how did you sanitize yours?
As I said, the president was monitoring on daily basis, and there are occasions where the president will even send you an inbox when you put something on Facebook, which is not nice when you're an NDC person. And there are several people who attest to that particular.
But how did you manage your sympathizers as well?
And what we, as I said, we were also monitoring and sending them inbox messages. Don't do that. And sometimes when it comes on the president's page or our personal page, for instance, I have close to about 6,000 I have 5,000 friends, over 5,000 friends. I have about 1,500 subscribers. So when you put anything on my page, it goes very far. So what I do is that I monitor it, and when you are an NDC person and you put something like that on my page, I just remove it immediately. So those were some of the things that we were doing to make sure that we sanitize the system. And I think all in all, if you do a fair and objective analysis of what NDC did on social media, it was so wonderful.
All right. Well, Kwabena, final word on this one. The political parties, how they should be sanitizing their pages.
I think going forward, if there are people who may be sympathetic to your political party and that create a page which is offensive to another party, political parties should make a better effort to delete it, because there were certain pages which were sponsored with ads, which had traction from the last 2 weeks of the elections, from over 10,000 people going there, which had offensive and insightful images, which should have been taken down by some of the political parties, but there was left online. We, as Ghana Decides, reported it to Facebook, but Facebook said it didn't contravene any of its policies. But then that page was left to run, and we think that's unfortunate. So in future, I think some political parties should make a better effort at checking those pages.
Can you just name and mention an example for
the page?
Naming and shaming is very
important. The page is, I think,
the page was called Nanado All Die We Die, and it had mock-up pictures with guns and all sorts of things which were not good for our politics.
Yes.
I don't know who's behind it, but
you realize that
there was money behind it.
We actually reported it to Facebook a number of times, and it sent an email to Facebook. They responded saying that they were looking into it, because it wasn't only they taking or using it for political campaigns. There were legal issues involved, because we had copyright issues. The photos that we had spent money for graphic designers to design, they took them and altered them. So Facebook took it seriously, said we'll get back.
I was talking about.
Did you know about this?
Yes, I saw that page.
And they were running ads.
And we tried as much as possible to see those behind those pages, but because because of how the page was created, it was quite difficult. But you see, I think the point must also be made that it is not because it is Nanado or Die Be Die, then it's coming from the NDC.
Not necessarily.
There were other several pages. For instance, I recall that when the election results were being announced, they took videos in Nanado's house and put it on Facebook, which was quite very inciting. I don't know whether you saw those videos as well.
I've actually run out of time.
That is a problem that we have.
I'm sure the political parties will find a way of sanitizing their websites, even as we take good use of the social media for our elections and for our politics. Many thanks to you, gentlemen, for joining me this morning. My name is Francis Alban. It's always a pleasure having you here with us on Election Headquarters. The show is sponsored by Star Ghana. Join us again tomorrow morning when we will be joined by Dr. Henry Herbert Latte, who will share his campaign profile with us. Touch as many hearts and minds as you can today and get socially interactive. Many thanks for your time here this morning.